Today we're doing a collaboration video with Godless Cranium. I talked a little bit about Satanism in another video, but we're going to be covering LaVeyan Satanism in more depth this time. Before we get into it though, I wanted to mention a couple of things. First, check out this fat artwork people drew for me. I f***ing love this fan art. This is really good shit. And second, I'll be going to Faithless Forum on April 7th in Dallas, Texas, so come see me there. I'll be hanging out with fans basically the whole time. So that's your chance to meet me in person. faithlessforum.com. Links are in the description. Okay, let's get into the Satanist stuff.
First off, I just wanted to quickly thank Telltale for the opportunity to work on this video with him. I'm a big fan of his work, and I'm looking forward to talking about Satan, or Satanism.
Oh, Satan, I hate you, oh, how I hate you.
In all seriousness, there's nothing supernatural about Satan, at least if you're talking about LaVeyan Satanism and the Church of Satan. But we'll get into that in one moment. First, let's lay down a little bit about their history. The religion was founded on April 30th, 1966 by Anton Szandor LaVey, who acted as the high priest until his death in 1997. In his book, The Satanic Bible, Anton wrote, quote, "Man, using his brain, invented all the gods, doing so because many of our species cannot accept or control their personal egos, feeling compelled to conjure up one or a multiplicity of characters who can act without hindrance or guilt upon whims and desires. All gods are thus externalized forms, magnified projections of the true nature of their creators, personifying aspects of the universe or personal temperaments, which many of their followers find to be troubling. Worshipping any god is thus worshipping by proxy those who invented that god. Since the Satanists understand that all gods are fiction, instead of bending a knee in worship to, or seeking friendship or unity with, such mythical entities, he placed himself at the center of his own subjective universe as his own highest value. We Satanists are thus our own gods, and as beneficent deities we can offer love to those who deserve it, and deliver our wrath, within reasonable limits, upon those who seek to cause us, or that which we cherish, harm." End quote.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit. Basically what he's saying is that when Anton LaVey, the founder of Satanism, was kind of creating the religion, he made it clear that he didn't really believe in Satan or God as actual literal beings. He just liked the archetype of the eternal battle between good and evil. Of course, I'm never joining another religion, under any circumstances, for the rest of my life. But I can still get on board with the whole appreciation of the archetype for rebelling against unquestionable authority and being destroyed for it. And actually, I was talking to somebody on my Discord the other day, and they were telling me this interesting story. I'm gonna f*** it up, so please forgive me. But I think what they were telling me is that there's this story within spiritual Satanism, which is different from LaVeyan Satanism, that the Bible was actually written by the bad guy, from the bad guy's perspective, to make himself look good. So God is this all-powerful deity who loves and cares for everybody, but he still has all these ridiculous rules about hating different types of people, and he endorses wars and hardens hearts and demands sacrifices and all this shit. I thought that was such an interesting perspective on it. I mean, think about that. The God of the Bible, when it doesn't have that all good slant on it, is a complete monster. What if Satan actually won the battle in heaven and threw God out, then wrote the book from his own perspective to make himself look good? What if the deity we think of as Satan is actually God who lost the war against Satan? I don't know. I don't really believe any of it. I just think it's a fascinating perspective on it. Moving on.
They do not believe in Satan as some sort of supernatural being, but instead view Satan as a sort of positive archetype. LaVeyan Satanism is compatible with atheism, and their current high priest, Peter H. Gilmore, has described members as skeptical atheists. There are 9 satanic statements which you can find in the Satanic Bible that quickly lay out what they believe. They are: 1. Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence. 2. Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams. 3. Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit. 4. Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. 5. Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. 6. Satan represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. 7. Satan represents man as just another animal, sometimes better, more often worse than those that walk on all fours, who, because of his divine spiritual and intellectual development, has become the most vicious animal of all. 8. Satan represents all the so-called sins, as they all lead to physical, mental, or emotional gratification. 9. Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had, as he has kept it in business all these years.
Can't argue with that. They have a lot of really interesting ideas and opinions on things, and since it was founded as recently as 1966, their morals and opinions are a lot more updated than the morals you find in the Bible, which was written between 4,000 and 1,800 years ago. Think about it. I would take 60-year-old morality over morality that is millennia old any day. Before I had turned fully atheist, I wondered if the Bible was the source of morality in the US. Then eventually, after studying morality for a while, I realized that the Bible was written using our own inherent morality as a guide. The morality you find in Iron Age peasants just isn't worth much is all.
There are a number of things I admire about the Church of Satan. The first thing being their Twitter feed. Seriously, they say some funny shit on there, and I highly recommend following them. But there are two things I really admire about the Church of Satan. The first thing being they don't evangelize and they don't accept members who aren't of legal adult age. The second thing I admire is that they pay their taxes, even though they technically qualify as a religion. Personally, I find both of these approaches far more ethical than current mainstream religions, who often try to recruit and indoctrinate children, and who enjoy tax-exempt status. I also like that the Church of Satan doesn't rely on supernatural nonsense. They do incorporate ritual into their ceremonies, but stay away from worshipping some sort of immaterial supernatural being.
All hail the Yahweh God. All hail the Yahweh God.
Satanists don't believe in the devil, they don't believe in heaven, hell, God, anything. We believe in us, and we believe in our will altering reality, that it's your life, it's your reality, and you have the ability to do whatever you want. And either you can do it or you can't do it. You can either be a victim or you can be a winner. And it's up to you on which choice, which path you want to take. You can either be part of it or you can be it.
I like those aspects of it too. You have to respect that they pay their taxes. How many religious fruitcakes have gone to jail over tax evasion? One comes to mind right off the top of my head. Kent Hovind. You don't even have to pay taxes for religious institutions, and the dude still managed to go to prison for 9 years for tax fraud. Seriously, pull it together. If you're wondering what was going on with that, from what I understand, he's basically building a community of some sort and refused to report it on his taxes at all. He wouldn't tell the IRS anything about it. Even though he might not have been obligated to pay taxes on it anyways, he still refused to follow the rules and report it. So they got him for structuring and all kinds of fraud. Anyways, regarding the non-supernatural bit, I agree that it's really nice that they generally stay away from supernatural stuff. But I do want to point out that in some cases they do buy into supernatural powers. The LaVeyans have something called the 11 Rules of the Earth. Here's what number 7 says. Acknowledge the power of magic if you have employed it successfully to obtain your desires. If you deny the power of magic after having called upon it with success, you will lose all you have obtained. So they do believe in magic to an extent. They believe in some kind of greater magic and lesser magic? I'm not really sure. Anyways, they do buy into some supernatural beliefs sometimes.
There are also a few things I don't like about LaVeyan Satanism, the most notable being their stance on strength and weakness. For example, in the Satanic Bible it says, quote, "Blessed are the strong, for they shall possess the earth. Cursed are the weak, for they shall inherit the yoke. Blessed are the powerful, for they shall be reverenced among men. Cursed are the feeble, for they shall be blotted out." End quote. Since I work with the deafblind, who many people would consider feeble or weak, I find this sentiment repellent. Now you could argue, and a Satanist might, that people like my clients are actually strong because they have to overcome obstacles that people who can see and hear don't have to overcome, and that would be a fair point. However, I think statements like the one I quoted can easily be interpreted to mean that people who might be deemed weak mentally or physically through no fault of their own should be yoked, taken advantage of, and or left behind, and I think that is profoundly sad. Again, I'm not saying that the Church of Satan necessarily meant those words to be interpreted in that manner, but I think they easily could be.
Yeah, it definitely could be. I have a little bit of a problem with that too. Although to clear it up, I think in that part they were trying to say the polar opposite of what the Bible says. They were trying to point out that we shouldn't automatically value qualities like obedience, humility, and weakness. And I agree with that. Cults capitalize on those characteristics all the time, especially Jehovah's Witnesses. They want you to be subservient and meek and quiet. They want you to obey everything the Watchtower Society tells you to do. And they use the names the Society and Jehovah interchangeably. It gets pretty scary, so I can get on board with the Satanist idea of bucking the traditional view of an honorable person being humble, weak, and obedient. But they definitely should have worded that better, because they're literally creating a religion out of this. They have to be extremely careful what they put in that book, because it will be misinterpreted.
Another satanic principle I'm not a big fan of is the idea that instead of turning the other cheek, you should exact revenge. I honestly don't think trying to get vengeance on people who may have wronged you is a good use of time in most cases, and can often lead to increasing levels of both physical and emotional violence. Sometimes the best course of action is to walk away.
Oh, they didn't just say we should exact revenge. There's a line in the 9 satanic statements which says, Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. But in the 11 rules of the earth they said, and I quote, when walking in open territory, bother no one. If someone bothers you, ask them to stop. If they do not stop, destroy them. I kind of feel like that's such overkill that it's hilarious, but again, they're trying to buck the whole thing the Bible says about turning the other cheek and being weak. I don't think the Satanists have the right approach, and I don't think the Christians do either. We have to step back, look at it objectively, and decide what would be the most beneficial course of action for ourselves and for the rest of society, without letting any religious ideologies tell us what to do. What's best from a scientific point of view?
Thanks again to Telltale for allowing me to take part in this video. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully we can work together in the future.
Definitely. I'm down. Anytime, old buddy. Don't forget to subscribe to Godless Cranium and follow both of us on social media. All links are in the description. And check out faithlessforum.com to see me at the conference. Thanks for watching, guys.